Where is the departure hall? A practical phrase used to find the airport departure area. Where is the departure hall? Where is the departure hall? I asked while my suitcase followed a flock of paper airplanes. Can I check in online? A practical phrase used to check whether online flight check-in is available. Can I check in online? Can I check in online? I asked as my laptop unfolded a tiny check-in desk. Could you print my boarding pass? A practical phrase used to request a printed boarding pass. Could you print my boarding pass? Could you print my boarding pass? I asked as the printer produced a paper airplane. Where can I drop off my baggage? A practical phrase used to find the baggage drop counter. Where can I drop off my baggage? Where can I drop off my baggage? I asked as my suitcase joined a polite queue by itself. Is my flight still on schedule? A practical phrase used to confirm that a flight remains on schedule. Is my flight still on schedule? Is my flight still on schedule? I asked while the airplane balanced a clock on its nose. Where is the tax refund desk? A practical phrase used to find the airport desk for tax refund procedures. Where is the tax refund desk? Where is the tax refund desk? I asked as my receipts pulled a tiny luggage cart. How early should I arrive at the gate? A practical phrase used to ask how far in advance to reach the boarding gate. How early should I arrive at the gate? How early should I arrive at the gate? I asked while my alarm clock camped beside a suitcase. Has boarding started? A practical phrase used to check whether passengers have begun boarding. Has boarding started? Has boarding started? I asked as the gate chairs formed a marching band. Is this the line for my flight? A practical phrase used to confirm that you are in the correct boarding line. Is this the line for my flight? Is this the line for my flight? I asked while the suitcases arranged themselves by height. Could I change my seat? A practical phrase used to ask whether a different seat is available. Could I change my seat? Could I change my seat? I asked as two airplane seats swapped tiny hats. Is there space in the overhead bin? A practical phrase used to check whether an overhead bin has room for a bag. Is there space in the overhead bin? Is there space in the overhead bin? I asked while the bags played a careful puzzle game. Could you help me with this form? A practical phrase used to request assistance completing a travel form. Could you help me with this form? Could you help me with this form? I asked as the pen opened a tiny instruction umbrella. Where can I refill my water bottle? A practical phrase used to find a drinking water refill station. Where can I refill my water bottle? Where can I refill my water bottle? I asked as a tiny cloud pointed toward a fountain. Are there any shops after security? A practical phrase used to check whether shops are available beyond security. Are there any shops after security? Are there any shops after security? I asked while a shopping bag peeked through the scanner. Where is the airport lounge? A practical phrase used to find the passenger lounge at an airport. Where is the airport lounge? Where is the airport lounge? I asked while an armchair rolled toward a quiet corner. Can I bring this on the plane? A practical phrase used to check whether an item is allowed in carry-on baggage. Can I bring this on the plane? Can I bring this on the plane? I asked while my souvenir pineapple wore a tiny seat belt. Do I need to declare this? A practical phrase used to check whether an item must be declared to customs. Do I need to declare this? Do I need to declare this? I asked as a souvenir teapot dressed for a formal interview. Can I change my flight? A practical phrase used to ask whether a booking can be moved to another flight. Can I change my flight? Can I change my flight? I asked while two airplanes exchanged colorful scarves. How much is the change fee? A practical phrase used to ask the cost of changing a flight booking. How much is the change fee? How much is the change fee? I asked as a calculator packed a tiny suitcase. When is the next available flight? A practical phrase used to find the next flight with available seats. When is the next available flight? When is the next available flight? I asked as a small airplane pulled up an empty chair.